Hey there, Jenna Matlin here. It's so nice to see you if you've come in live or that you're going to watch later. It's kind of rare that I'm here by myself. I usually have a guest or someone that I can hang out with, but I thought I'd just hang out me and you today, if that's okay. So, welcome. I have a really cool kind of tarot workshop for you today that I hope will really be helpful for you as a tarot reader, wherever you are on your journey. And so today is really about, as a reader, we're often so busy trying to decode um, what the cards are saying or how the cards are answering a question that we often don't listen for tone and volume. And those things, when I figured out what's going on, it really leveled up my tarot situation. But before I get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about me. My name is Jenna Matlin. I have been a full time tarot professional since 2012. I'm the author of 3 books. Have Tarot Will Travel, Have Tarot Will Party, and 2022 was published by Llewellyn, Will You Give Me a Reading, where I really dish out all of the techniques that I have discovered and have practiced to get me to the next level of true intermediate and advanced tarot reading. Um, so yeah, that's who I am. You can go to my website, www.jennamatlin.com. I'm actually working on a class right now as we speak to kick off in July called Spectral Reader. And it is a tarot mediumship course for tarot people wanting to add that or strengthen that through their tarot practice. It's not up yet. I'm still finishing up the website, so it's going to be up soon, and there is an early bird pricing. But all of that is also to kick off the Mystic South Conference in Atlanta, Georgia at the end of July, where I will be doing a very shortened and condensed 90-minute version of what I'm going to be doing in the course. So if that sounds interesting, hit me up or go to my website, which is my name, jennamatlin.com, for more information. I also have some psychic gallery sessions coming up. I have one next Friday. So if you want to check me out on a budget, definitely come join us. It's a small group of 12 of us. So that's it for the pitch. I hope you're doing well. Hello to all my live people. I see you all. I see a number of you all here, but I don't actually see any comments. So welcome and chime in at any time that you have any questions. So I want to start off this conversation around tone and volume via an insight that I had probably like my second year of professional reading. And that's the thing. I've been doing this for a really long time. Hey, Christina, it's so good to see you. Yeah, I don't know who is of the number of people that are here until you guys say something. So I'm not ignoring you. I literally don't know who you are until you comment. So, hey, Kathy from Kentucky, welcome. I'll be in Kentucky actually in a couple of weeks for the Sarah McLachlan concert. How funny is that? Anywho, oftentimes people that are hobbyists as tarot readers may not clock, right, the kind of numbers that I clock as a professional tarot reader. And there's something to be said about what you learn after doing 500 readings, 1,000 readings, 10,000 hours of readings. Hey, Carrie, welcome. Hey, Anna. I'm so glad you guys are here. And so it's really in the aggregate of doing something over and over again, many, many times, that you kind of break through the foundation of what you thought you understood was going on. And then you get to this other layer, which is what true mastery is. So if you don't want to put in like 1,000 hours of readings, understandable. So let me help you. I can like show you what I learned from all of those hours so that you don't have to, but it will still make you a really good reader. So it was about 2 years into my full-time practice where I had a client come in, and I've changed enough of the story. It's to be an example without breaking confidentiality. Um, who came in and I was like, what do you want to look at? Oh, just whatever. Okay. So I pull some cards out And I don't know if any of you've had this experience. Like I kind of call it psychic override, where the compulsion to say something and to blurt it out kind of happens before you can process why you said that. And so I looked at the cards, and before I really could really start parsing what I was seeing here, I knew she was about to get fired from her job. And I kind of just said it like, "You're about to be fired," right? Like it just kind of came out before I could grab it. It was a shocking thing. And she was very, very upset. And the reading had very, very terrible cards in it, like Tower, Death, like all the baddies were out. And she was quite upset. And I remember at the end of the session, I was like, I hope you're okay. And most of the session was trying to get past her defenses around a completely unexpected message, which I found out later it wasn't really unexpected, but people have defenses, and that's natural for all of us. So at the end of the session, I go, I hope you have a better night. Like, I'm really sorry about this really tough reading. And she's like, well, not because of you. She was very upset. And then she left. And about 2 weeks later, I just reached out because I rarely have a reading like that. And I just want to make sure she was okay. I didn't hear anything. So I was like, okay, she's still mad. Darn. Okay. What could have I done better? That's what I was thinking. And then a couple weeks after that, she emailed me out of the blue and was like, Jenna, I was fired. And she listed some really toxic, crazy stuff. But in the session, she was like, I just, signed a new lease. I just got a dog. Like, I cannot be fired. That's just not going to happen. But she was. And in the letter, she said, if you hadn't have told me, I wouldn't have been as prepared as I was, and I was able to take action really quickly. So that was a really interesting story because I was asking myself, why did that happen? And why was the reading so dark? And then it hit me that the reading was so loud and so like dramatic, for lack of a better term, because tarot or the universe, whoever you think is responsible for all of this, knew she could not hear it unless it was legitimately screaming in her face. And that if the punches were pulled, she would have easily just completely discounted it and continued to do the thing that she was going to do that would have led her to her having a really bad reaction to a bad outcome. So once I realized what was happening, then I started watching it a lot, and it's one of my foundational approaches to reading tarot, and that in many ways I kind of feel like I'm a puppet sometimes, or I'm a channel where it's not just what I'm saying as a tarot reader to someone, but also how I'm saying it. And I take my cues in terms of how I say a reading from the tone of the reading itself. So if a reading is kind, it's gentle, I'm going to take that tact. If the reading is more dramatic and loud, I'm going to take that tact. So that becomes hard as readers if we want to make everything okay and we get upset if the people we're reading for are upset, or we see something really bad and we pull our punch and we don't communicate faithfully what we're seeing on the table. So if we don't do that, we may actually not be part of the solution. And I'll give you another example. I had someone who was a friend of mine who wanted to know about a business venture. And I got to be honest, I'm not proud of this. When I look back, I'm like, oh, lesson learned. Um, but it was a lot of bad cards, Tower, this, that. It wasn't going to work. It really wasn't going to work. But because this person was my friend and I didn't want to upset her, and maybe my subjectivity was too involved, I pulled my punch on that reading and didn't tell her straight like I should have. But the reading was right. And she wasted a long time like not letting the thing that wasn't working go because she heard from the reading like areas that she could have maybe shifted with time. And all that did was end up hurting her. So that's the thing. It's like if we're really going to be tarot readers, then we got to be tarot readers. And that means, as hard as it is sometimes, that we have to communicate the volume and tone as much as the information, because the volume and tone is directly related and very personal to the person that we're reading for. So if someone gets a reading, let me think. Let me check my notes. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here to tell you that I might be. Mhm. So the thing about tarot is not just about what it's saying, right? But how it's saying it. And the message of tarot is written not just for information, but also strangely, it's able to take that person's personality, their situation, and the state of change into account, right? So, for example, the example I gave, it was that loud because she was not going to take it in any other way. And I often notice that the volume of a reading is proportionate to their defensive reactions. And the more defensive and avoidant and disassociative and head in the sand, they are about a situation, the more emphatic and the more dramatic I notice the tarot cards to be. So just by looking at the volume and the dramaticness of the reading on top of what it's saying, I can then surmise, like I can ask myself, well, it's saying this, but why is it saying it in this way for this person? And then that gets you to a whole other level of insight about what's going on in that other person's internal like landscape that then informs us so that we can be better readers for them. And also, when I notice in the readings, it's often the reading is partially objective reality about a future state, but it's also a manipulation. And that manipulation has a purpose. So, a good example for that is if you remember Scrooge, right? That story. And everyone hates him. He sucks. He's rich and he doesn't care about anyone. He's like a few billionaires we know, modern day billionaire. And he has three ghosts come to him: Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present, and then Ghost of Christmas Future. So in the Ghost of Christmas Future, if you remember, he's taken to his grave. And he's just mind boggled. He's like, no one came, no one cared, no one left. Like, everyone is better without me? Are you serious? Right? That's what was revealed because he was just a net drain on society. He saw that when he was not living, that people were better for it. And then the ghost brings him back, right? The ghost brings him back. And then he wakes up the next morning, completely a changed man, right? So he's like showering his employees and little Timmy, whatever you need, gold here. I want to give. I want to be a net addition to the world, not a net drain. Okay, we all know the story. So then the question then is that future still going to happen for Scrooge? Right? Or did he change it? Most of us would say he changed it because he has free will. Then doesn't that invalidate the prediction that he was shown? These are the fun questions I think about all the time. So for me, I see tarot readings like that, acting as if the Ghost of Christmas Future, that it's showing us a future, but it is a probable future based off of what you're doing or not doing or whatever. And the future is written in such a way to get you to take action. So just like the Ghost of Christmas Future knew that nothing will get Scrooge to change except we show him dead and no one cares. And that's what Scrooge needed to change. So as readers, it's also kind of something that's happening here. So it's less about this objective future and more about the future that's being written here is a manipulation. And that manipulation is what? To either get us to do something, to get us to not do something, to get us to realize something, to get us to let something go, whatever it is. And that in of itself often then just invalidates the future we saw, because hopefully you or someone you're reading for, they're going to change their free will, which will then change the whole predictive arc of the reading. So this is what I mean. Like, readings are far more tricky and far more subtle than the cultural zeitgeist gives credence to tarot. And so it's less about this is the objective future that's written in stone, and more about this future is being written in such a way to get me to be a better person in some way, or to keep me from suffering in some way. So if we go back to the first example, right, of this person who was about to be fired, and it blurted out, "You're about to be fired," then, you know, it's about her hearing it and getting it so that she can course correct, not so that she won't get fired necessarily, but that she doesn't, do something rash or harmful to herself because she's so completely shocked it happened, because part of her really knew it, but she was dissociating from it. So that's the weird loosey goosey, timey wimey, like that question I'm always asking myself. If I'm a tarot reader, who's the writer? Who's writing these? It's a lot smarter than I am. I got to tell you, I'm not that smart. I'm smart enough to realize it in aggregate over thousands of readings going, what is going on? Right. But I'm not the one doing it. So who is? I don't know if I'm even interested in necessarily trying to answer that question, but it's a question that keeps me humble. It's not about me. There's something greater going on here that I then have to be a faithful channel to. And the moment I get I'm afraid of how they're going to respond. I'm afraid to like say this, or it doesn't answer their question completely, which is also a device. Then I'm putting myself and I'm interjecting myself where maybe I don't belong. So it does take a lot of, especially if we're reading for other people that don't have a sense of the complexity of tarot in this way. Are you guys with me? So yeah, I'm looking at the comments. Anna, like a conduit, exactly. And the more faithful we are to that, the better it's going to go. And then Kathy says, I have a habit of avoiding outcome cards, and I'm having to come to terms with them. I'd be curious to ask you, why do you have a habit of avoiding them? Like, what is the underlying like thoughts that you have that are causing that resistance within you? Anna, yes, the volume shows the level of urgency, partially. Sometimes, yes, like this has to happen now. And sometimes it is, you're not going to hear it any other way. Like, I have to freaking scream it at you before you'll do something. You know, those like memes of like women are like, I've said my husband nice and he doesn't listen. Like, I literally had like my luggage packed out the door. And that's when he finally woke up, right? Like, it took the wife to get to that level before he woke up out of whatever delusions he was about where they were at. And that's often tarot acts as that very strong and passionate catalyst for change, which often is just stop like lying to yourself, right? There's a lot of that in tarot readings. Thank you, Christine. Thanks for the quote. Yes, before I draw near to know which point are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Right. Exactly. And the answer is both, depending on you often. Sometimes it's either way, right? It's not just a one trick pony. Yeah. So Kathy says, wanting everyone to be okay when I know they can't. That, and I say this with great sensitivity and care, and like I'm the same, and I had to train myself out of it, is a bit of a codependent and caretaking response. And if we're good tarot readers, we cannot take on that caretaking because we'll pull our punch, or we're afraid, what if the outcome is wrong? And then they're going to come back to us. But often the moment we speak the outcome, in many situations, the moment you say it and it's made aware to the other, it changes. And so we have to be okay with um, the loosey goosiness, which to me is the art and beauty of tarot to begin with, right? It's less like that final outcome, but more about how does that final outcome card inform the path I'm on now? And as your point, Anna, maybe the hardest thing to trust is a process and believe it's there to help. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I can tell you as a pro reader, what helps me is having relationships with clients for the last decade, if not a little bit more, and watching the arc of their life story and seeing and having people walk out of my office, leave me a bad review. She sucks. She's the worst reader I've ever had, and I'm like, and then I get an email later, a year later, year and a half later, that's like, you were right, Jenna. And I say, oh, I wasn't right. It was the cards. It wasn't me. It's not me. So I often feel I'm very talented at picking up the message, but I'm not writing the message. So when people say, Jenna, you were wrong. Okay. Jenna, you were really right. And I'm like, whoa, it wasn't me. And sometimes here's the crazy thing. I've seen tarot be wrong on purpose, which is wild. So the more we can pull ourselves away and just see ourselves as a translator as faithfully as we can of the message, and that the message is being written for its own, often inscrutable reasons that will play out over years, the better we don't have to take on the labor of being responsible for it all. Like, we want to be responsible for our part, which is to be as faithful and careful as possible. And we do that by not adding our bias, our opinion onto it. And we can also say to someone, this is a tough message that I'm getting for you. And I know it's going to be hard to hear, but I'm here with you and we're going to work through it. Like, there's ways that you can communicate that helps people understand it's not you, it's the message, and you're on team them and the message. Is that helpful? Yes. Trusting that you're a witness is huge. It's huge, huge. Holding space for without having to fix it is huge. And I would wager that most readers that do this a lot were probably parentified as kids, and that you found you had a skill set in fixing and making people better. That brought with you intuition and insight into the human condition. However, the shadow side of that is knowing when to stop over functioning as a reader. And that's hard. That's hard for when you're a tarot reader. That's hard for when you are a medium, because I'll have things come through and I'm like, I'm seeing this. And they're like, nope, you're wrong. That's all wrong. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Right. And if I allow that to be taken in personally, I start to mess up, because then I get self-conscious. So now we can just say, okay, cool. It's okay that it doesn't make sense. Sit with it and see what happens. And oftentimes they'll be like, oh my God, it hit me. It was this other thing. So that's the thing. As a reader, if you are getting reactions like facial reactions, body reactions, verbal reactions, you have to find a way to not take it in, and also continue to trust what you're seeing and perceiving, even though the person right in front of you is like, nope. And I know that just because I've been doing this for so long. And then sometimes it's completely wrong, and sometimes I'm wrong. I'm human. That happens. So that's the risk we all play when we do this work. But it's also true if you're a surgeon, you're going to make a mistake. An accountant, you're going to make a mistake. Like, things happen. We have off days. So I think giving ourselves a lot of grace, but also really exacting in our process, for me, has been the way to go. Carrie, if you seem to get cards, now this is a little off topic, but I'll answer it very briefly. I think this is a great live for another day. If you get cards that seem to address a question that's totally different than the one asked, what do you do? That never, that almost never now happens to me. And so the thing I would say to you is the question tight enough? Or is the question loosey goosey? Because I would say that this issue means that there's something going on with the question, which could mean that the person didn't give you a specific question. And sometimes they'll tell you one question, but they're thinking about another. And the tarot could be answering that one, but you don't know that. So there's a lot of different reasons why, but come back to the question. Sometimes you have something called tarot, what I call tarot override, where someone wants to know about like X, and then the reading's like, yeah, no, we're not going to answer that for you. We need to talk about this. And it feels very different for me when that happens versus the other ones. Because when that happens, there's a very clear story, lots of major arcana, very, very loud in that way. And it's clear to me that the universe or whoever is like, yeah, no, that's irrelevant. Sometimes that does happen. But first, I would look at the question. I'd really look at the question as a way to figure out what's going on here. There's also another rookie thing, which is, and this is a rookie move I see, and I'm not saying, Carrie, that you're a rookie or anything, but one of the things I try to train my students out of is those cards are answering the question, but you've now just changed the question to fit the cards. And that just means that you're not as skilled and that you just need more practice, because those cards are answering the question you got. So often that can be that too. So there's a lot of different reasons. But for today, that's a good question. Thank you. For today, we're going to talk about the volume, and we'll do some examples. Let me see if there's anything more with my notes here. In my experience, these manipulations of the universe to us are universally benevolent in nature. And that doesn't mean it's what that person wants to hear. And it may not be that this is the easy answer. Often it's the hard answer. More often than not, it's that hard answer they were avoiding and they didn't want to have to do. But it's the only thing that will get them to somewhere more benevolent for them. I've never seen a reading as hard as readings can be. I've never seen readings that have led someone to greater harm. So we're going to get into some like examples and just kind of play around with this. Is that okay? Oh, so Christina has one, and then we'll get into some practice. So Christina says, years ago while trying to practice, I begged to do a reading for my sister. She asked about getting a love carpet. So she used tarot for. I started getting lots of majors. I asked her whether that was really her question. She said no. She was thinking about whether she was getting a full-time job. Yeah, like with enough practice, you'll get a sense of like, there's something going on here, and that's when you got to use your troubleshooting skills. So I really think that to be a good reader, it does require a lot of intuition, but also it does require a lot of logic too, as you're trying to suss out like what's going on here and why. A lot of problem solving skills, which is part of what is a good reader, because often people come in and they seem like, like, oh my God, there's all this going on, and I just don't know how to make this a question, right? But when you're on the outside of that, you can help them figure out what is the essential question that will take us to other really good questions. And it reminds me of a quote that I read somewhere about Albert Einstein, where he said, give me 60 minutes to solve a problem, and I'm going to spend the first 59 minutes getting to the right question, that if we answer that solves the problem. And I often feel like that is such an unspoken, like, skill set of a good reader. But if we're reading for another person, they're like, aren't you just supposed to know? Like, aren't you know, like, and or they get like maybe frustrated with it. But the work to do that not only helps them reframe what feels overwhelming in a way that they can now see with greater clarity because they're outside of it, but it's really going to get them information that's going to be very helpful, because we can do those more amorphous readings. But what happens is, so someone comes in, we've got an hour, and I'm like, what are you here for? You tell me. I'll get there. I will tell you. But do you really want to spend 30 minutes of the time you're paying me for me to tell you something you already know? Because we want to play the psychic game? I mean, I can, but it'll be far more helpful for you if you just lay out what's going on, and then I can give you some recommendations. And then we allow tarot's beautiful way of doing what it does to show us and really, really help her. So, okay, let's get into some of this. So we're going to talk about, let me get my, so I'm going to have my little screen here. Let me see here. My screen, my camera has been acting weird. So let's just say, let me grab my notes. Let's just say that, I mean, this is probably the most common kind of question, right? So let's just say someone comes in, and everyone can see my hand okay? I just broke up with my boyfriend, but I have a feeling that we're meant to be, right? We're meant to be. I just know it in my bones that we are meant to be. So when is he coming back? And what does this look like, right? And so you go, okay, let's take a look. And you pull, this is the Kitty Kahane tarot. I love this deck right now. It's like my currently it is like my favorite deck. Let me where are you? I can't seem to, oh, there it is. I can't seem to manipulate it. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to play with it. Ah, there you are. Okay. Can everybody still see it okay? Sometimes it gets weird with all the windows of me trying to add it and whatever. So here we have the Lovers. And let's just say, I'm going to pull some, and let's just say we got the Devil, and we got Ten of Swords, right? Like, oof. So are we going to get back together? When is he coming back? Because I just know in my heart of hearts, he's going to come back, right? So then we ask, like, what is the tone we're getting? What, I mean, first, what is it saying? Sorry about the glare. What is it saying? Anyone want to try? Don't be shy. So we have the Lovers, we have the Devil, and then we have Ten of Swords. So is he going to come back or not? Okay, break the chains, it's over. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Christina. It could mean something like, maybe there could be some on again, off again here, right? Like there's something here, but ultimately it will be over. There could be some kind of, brief reconnection or something really toxic that you guys are up to that eventually really, really hurts you. Yeah, it may not be the best idea, but she didn't ask whether it was the best idea, Carrie. She asked if it's going to happen. So that's the other thing. When we're listening to what people are asking, we want to always answer their question. And so readings typically have, like, there are 3 buckets that most readings tend to fall under. Predictive, like what is going to happen. Descriptive, like what is going on around me right now? I'm so confused. Can you help me get a sense of what's happening? And then prescriptive, which is advice. She didn't ask for advice. So we don't give her the advice. We just tell her what's going to happen. Is he going to come back? Yes, but ultimately, he's going to leave again and you'll be really hurt, right? That could be a way of looking at it. And so we have here the devil and 10 of swords. What do you think the volume is here from 1 to 10? But how do we know it's good riddance, Anna? So Anna is saying it's good riddance. How do we know it's good riddance? Maybe she's the problem. We don't know that yet. Okay, Christina says the volume is 10. Yeah, this is a very, very, very loud reading, right? Like it can't get much louder than this. So as a reader, like how do I translate that well? I translate by being very clear, giving no wiggle room. Because what happens is when it's usually this loud, that means that her defense mechanisms, her delusions, whatever's happening, are going to immediately twist your reading unless you're very, very clear about it. Yes, Anna. Not coming back or does come back for a fling, that is like, that will just hurt her more than if she just didn't let him come back to begin with, right? Like, that's for sure. So with a reading like this, you got to be really, really clear and not hedge your language, because whatever little hedge, even if you said something, and maybe he'll call at one point, but then you're going to have 3 kids by him, and then he's going to leave you, and then you're going to be homeless, and then your life is destroyed. She'll be like, uh-huh. Mm. So he's going to call on Tuesday? And I don't say this in judgment. I have been here. Have I been here in my own past and in my own life? You know? No, he's not the one in the swords, because she's not really she's asking about him, but it's really about her. Like, is he going to come back? Yes. However, this is what's going to happen to you. Because the reading is about her and what is in her best interests. The reading's not going to say, oh, this happens to him. And then she'll be like, oh no, oh my God, let me call him today. Right? So we have to think about the context here and keep it tight within the context and the story that's being told. So we have a level 10 volume. We have a tone. What's like, so the volume's high. What would you call the tone here? Is it calm? Is it reassuring? I would say no. A matter of fact, it's almost like the reading is trying to scare her straight in no uncertain terms. This is what I call, and excuse my French here, but it's kind of a bitch slap from the universe. Like, wake up, like dunking you in the buckle, in the barrel. Wake up out of the fantasy of the limerence and obsession you're in with this person. Yeah, it's adamant. It's emphatic. It's not mincing words. And it's and if we think of it as a manipulation, right? And that this is not maybe the true future, but it's a manipulation. Isn't this then her version of Scrooge's Christmas future story? Something so bad and so awful, it finally gets her to get it. Does that make sense for everybody? And then you ask yourself, well, why? Why does she need to hear it this way? Because she will not be able to hear it any other way. That's typically what I've noticed in my experience anyway. Your mileage may vary. So let's just say, let's like keep the same question. Like, okay, we have the lovers. Is he coming back? Right? And let's say we get, I'm just trying to choose. So is he coming back? Yes or no? We have lover's death. Yeah, the tone is a warning. And tarot does it's not tarot's lying, but tarot is choosing one possible future out of many to get you to be your best self in some way. Yeah, this is a no. He's not coming back, right? And let's add one more. So now we have the Lovers, we have Death, and we have Five of Cups. So the answer is still no, but the volume is very different now, isn't it? And the tone is very different. The reading isn't trying to get her to see at all costs. The reading is more like, yeah, it's over and you've got to grieve this. You've got to get through this. It's more of like a more of a neutral, but like really validating what is going on. And sometimes as a reader, the biggest gift we can ever give to anyone is to validate what their intuition has been telling them all along, but they didn't know if they could trust it. So to me, this is someone who's going to have an easier time getting out of this relationship, but they just need validation. Yeah, it is a nice, happy sun. Right. Very, very good point, Christina. And so if we have this as the final card, what can we surmise about our person as a result of this card coming up? Why would she need to be told that she needs to grieve this being over? Well, yeah, we know she's going to get over him, but why would the cards maybe say that? So to me, when I see something like this, and like, yes, it's obvious she's gonna grieve that this is over, right? It often can mean that this is a person who avoids feeling bad at all costs. That maybe she'll jump to the next guy as fast as possible because she doesn't want to feel this. The reading is trying to accept that this is the process and she cannot shortchange it. You see what I mean? Like, why is the reading showing me something that's very, very obvious that we already know? It's because there's some reason why she needs to be told this. So, what could it be? It's typically like what I've said. Yes, it's over, but you're going to have to allow yourself to feel your feelings about this and not rush. Right. And look at it. This is why I love this deck. It's such a cool deck. They just, I think it was last year, they reprinted it. It's on Amazon if anyone wants it. It's called, oh, I don't have the boxes over here. Kitty Kahane. Win. Good, Christina. Yeah. Anna, wonderful job. Good job. Yay. You guys make me so happy. Right. The volume is sad, but it is supportive of her. It's not the brimstone and fire of the breakup. And so we can surmise, why is it being so supportive? Because more than anything, it's not that she can't see that it's happening, is that she really knows that she's going to be okay. But Five of Cups is an interesting maneuver here because it's really about her feelings, not necessarily her actions. And we can see that the cups that are spilled and her are looking right at death. They're looking at each other. And I'm looking at this bird and I'm like, I don't know yet, but I would say there's something for me psychically interesting about what's happening in this image. It could be like a dream state or a part of her that doesn't want to look at this. But then what I might do, right, as a reader is I'm going to point her to that beautiful little sun, right? And then also these two upright cups that like it's not about like once you grieve this, it's not over. And feeling your grief is not somewhere you're going to stay stuck. It's not the end of your journey by any stretch of the imagination. However, you have to feel this in order to move forward in your journey in a healthy way. Like she doesn't want to. She might move to know someone very quickly. And that's very different than, so let's shift it up. So let's say we have let's say we had this instead. So the answer is still no, right? And then we have Six of Swords. The Six of Swords is the card of moving on. And why is the tone now and like the shift of the how the answer is written different from this? They're saying still very much the same thing, aren't they? But it's the how and the why. Why is it being said this way? How is it being said? And why is it being said? So to me, this would be a more supportive grouping. Like you were saying, Ana Luisa, like that it's sad, but it's being supportive in a way that's like, you're going to be okay. You're going to move on from this. And what you're going to have is better than what you had with this a-hole, right? So this feels more like planning. There's movement, action. This is more about like the actual things she needs to do to move on, that she's going to be okay. So to me, this is more about thinking process and planning. And we also see here that there are people around her. So it's also, you're going to be okay. And there are going to be other people that are going to come support you in this process. Yeah, I think you said the right thing. So Ana Luisa, that this is a liminal phase, right? So, but this is more about her internal and emotional process. And it's being shown because that's the thing that maybe she's not so good at. But let's just say she is really good at feeling her feelings. She's like a super mega Queen of Cups. But her problem isn't the feeling. The problem is action. So possibly she could feel this, right? And then maybe stay stuck there or ruminate a lot about the death piece and really spend a lot of time in this emotional state without getting to the other side of healing. That would be something I'd be worried about if I saw this. But if we have something like this, it's not talking about that. It's talking about the external supports. Do you see the difference in tone there? And these things are sometimes subtle to perceive, but they have major impact in how accurate a reading can be for that person. So it brings me to another way of looking at this. So when I do a reading, it's my logic now, right? That it's not just what it's saying, but it's also what it's not saying. I want to look at what it's not saying. It's not saying this. So this may mean that's not a particular challenge area for our person, but this is. So if she says something like, I'm worried I'm just never going to get over this and I'm just going to grieve forever, I'm like, no. Yeah, it's going to suck for a minute. Like, yes, but you're not alone and it's getting better. Make sure you're asking for help. Yeah, very good, Ana. So she will bounce back because now she's pointing this way, isn't she? Very, very different than this. But technically, they're both saying the same thing. And this is what I'm talking about, which is toggling back and forth between our right side of the brain, which is intuitive, psychic, relational, visual, and also the left side, which is linguistic and cause and effect oriented and logical. So we can use both sides to really extrapolate like so much out of 3 cards. It's crazy. You don't need a lot of cards. Because I trust and I've seen it that the universe is going to tell us what we need and how we need it, but not always what we need. So sometimes we may see this like, am I going to break up? And then we give that. Let me find something else. Okay. So let's have this, right? Is he gonna, is he gonna come back? Is he gonna call me? And it's like, no, it's over, right? But then we see this. So now we have the lovers, we have death, and we have judgment. It's very similar to Six of Swords, isn't it? In some ways, like you're leaving something, but now the tone is completely different. What's the tone? I know there's a bit of a lag, so I'm imagining that you're furiously typing your answers into the keyboard. So now we have judgment. So the answer is still no. And so what does judgment mean? The traditional meaning of it is like you have been judged by God and you have passed the test and you get to be raptured to heaven. You get to have a whole new life. But the way I tend to see judgment is I really look at it in terms of evolution. That you've passed some karmic lesson, you have freed yourself from something, and now you get to level up in some way. And so we look at that and go, how is that fundamentally different? And what can we surmise from that? What's the tone? The tone is, Carrie, like you said, almost jubilant. Yeah. Super, super, super sorry, wrong person. Super, super positive. So for me, I'd be like, oh, you got this, man. Like you're gonna be fine, more than fine. That you're gonna take all of the lessons that came from this experience. Sorry, there's like a spider on my shoulder. And you're going to level up. Big things are going to shift because you have really, really internalized what you needed to from this in a way that's going to free you in many ways. So it still says the same thing as the rest of them, right? One of them is, so we can look at this kind of like, let me see here. So let me pull back. So we can kind of see that the answer comes in like orders of consciousness, maybe of personal consciousness or where they are at. So the answer is the same, but where they land in terms of the answer maybe tells us about where this person is in their overall like consciousness or self-awareness or their own karmic work. So we have something that has kind of a lower vibration. And by that, I don't mean like less or that she's less, but just that's where she is. And that's okay. And then it kind of goes up and up and up. So that's part of the tone as well. So here's going to be another tricky one. So say we come back to this, right? Like 5 of Cups, grief. You need to feel this, right? How is that different than this? 3 of Swords. What's the tone difference here? Three of Swords is really dramatic as well. More dour. That's a good word. I haven't heard that word in a while. Dour. I have a big vocabulary, and someone accused me of using ChatGPT. I was like, you should have heard me when I was 10. I've always used big words. But and it's more about, to me, the difference here would be someone who's terrified of feeling heartbreak someone who doesn't want to feel it and wants to avoid it, but the volume is louder. Good one, Kathy. It's a much louder volume, which means that her resistance to feeling these bad feelings is very, very high. And the reading is trying to compensate to get over the hump of that resistance. Yeah. Like this is like devastated, and you like this is gonna be a doozy, but you have to feel this. This is really over. You've been harmed. So to me, this would have even more of an abuse or like something like really toxic connotation, because there's a victimhood element, isn't there, in that Three of Swords? She's been victimized. She might be someone who's like, I'm not the victim. I pull myself up by my bootstraps. That's not me. I'm not gonna, right? And so there's some acknowledgement here of like, hey, wait, slow down. What's happened to you is effed up, man. We need to acknowledge what has occurred here. And that has particular relevancy to her in terms of where she's at, energetically, consciously, self-worky, whatever. You can draw other cards, but you often don't need to. I prefer not drawing cards. Like I am anti clarifying card because most of the time it makes you more confused. So instead of adding more cards, what we want to do is do more readings with more questions. So if we had this, right, it was like, oh, you have to feel this. And then she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, can I have more details? We don't just keep piling on more cards. We go, okay, that's a good question. Let's turn that into its own reading. And so what I call this my thin slice method, which is more readings done, but with smaller cards. So you're really tracking very closely. Especially for newer readers, this is so much more helpful than like a whole Celtic cross. The Three of Swords could show revisiting the breakup, dwelling in bitterness. Possibly. I would be careful with the word bitter, because I don't necessarily think that it could be that, you know? I would wait. So how do we then, figure out what this is? We didn't talk to the querent. Like, how does this land for you? How do you feel? And then they're going to start talking, and then you can ask them, what are you hearing here? And based on how they respond, we'll be able to tell you about the bitterness piece. And then you can offer a follow-up question around that so that we can explore that. How do I move forward without becoming bitter as a result of what's happened, right? And then we can throw 3 more cards. Let's say we had this again, and then we had something like this. So we have the Lovers, we have Death, and we have 8 of Swords. And how is that different to this one? I'd even say it's something like this. She's stuck. Yep. It's far worse of the two in terms of her long term. So here we see, all right, you've got to feel this. You can't ruminate on this and what happened. There is a future, but you've got to really go through the grief process. The Empress, tell me why. I'm going to put you up here. Tell me. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry. Tell me where you see that she has to communicate. Especially if the question is he going to come back? Is he going to call? We broke up, but is he going to call? Where do you see to communicate here? Because I don't mean to call you out, but I don't know if I see it that way in the way I read. Because this question Oh, Gemini lovers. I don't know if you came in late. So the question was this: how like is he going to call? So I'm very clear in terms of my readings, not to jump the gun. So what is she asking? She's asking a predictive question. She's not asking what I should do about him. That's another question. So to me, it's talking about the predictive state. So it's not, and then this is what's going to happen to you after that. Oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. Like I can get like if you didn't have the context, you'd been like, wait, no. But there's no to do anything towards him because that death card is there. And this was like the past, like this is what it was or what I'm hoping for. So now the difference is, what's the difference between these two, right? Like, okay, this is you've got to acknowledge it. You have to grieve this, fully grieve it. Don't try to not grieve this. It sucks in order for things to shift. But then we have this 8 of Swords. She's stuck. She needs to grieve because he won't reach out. Yes, but also if she does not grieve, it impedes her journey to love. It impedes her journey towards consciousness, towards her karmic lessons. And it probably speaks to her avoidance of wanting to feel bad, which is why she got stuck with this guy in the first place. Yes, Kathy, 8 of Swords, she's stuck in her process. Right. She is in full on freeze response. Oh, Empress Chicha Limerence, that is like a 5-hour. Yes, I do. We talked a little bit about that. You came in late. Watch the replay. So we have someone very, very stuck. So it's not even like you need to feel this. It is, how do we get you? You're going to get into freeze mode if this happens in this way, right? And so we don't see the happy ending here. It's not, the tone isn't like uplifting. The tone isn't like supportive as we saw with 6 of Swords. But what we're seeing here is a bit of an ominous warning. It has a tone of, it's like ominous a little bit, isn't it? And the volume to me is loud, but not in like a bitch slappy kind of way, as I've said before. But it is saying, you absolutely cannot let this freeze you, where then you just hide for the next 10 years of your life, ruminating over what happened. So if we see readings as manipulations, what's the manipulation? It's not necessarily the objective future. Thank you, Empress. Oh, that's sweet. That's so sweet of you. I'm so glad you like it. Where is it? This is my book. If you like this, this is this. I have a lot of this. This is my style. This is my system that really can help you level up in the ways that I'm showing. So, right, like, yeah, absolutely. Yes. So we might even ask her, like, do you have a freeze response to trauma? Is this something has happened to you before? This would probably suggest yes. This is not her first rodeo with this. And so what we see here is a bit of an ominous warning, which is, unless you do something different, you're going to find yourself here and it's no good for you. You cannot respond to this by like hiding from life and freezing. And then that may lead us to another question, which is, okay, well, how do I not do this? Or what do I need? And then we could throw 3 more cards. I'll do one more. And then finally, let's see here. Is he going to call me? And we have 9 of Cups. We have the Lovers, we have Death, and Nine of Cups, right? It's not always bad. Sometimes it's really, really great and really, really good. I love it when I just get blowout time happy news because it makes me happy to be able to impart that. So sometimes we get something like this, right? Which is like, you guys were together, now you're over, but oh my God, like this is going to be the best thing that ever happens to you. And then that's the tone. Very, very hopeful. Not even hopeful. It's even better than that. It's joyful. It's promising um, that you are going to like walk out of the clouds of his bullshit. Excuse my language. And you're going to get on this. And like, and what's interesting, if we look at the cards that we've done so far, we can look just in the spatial relationships between the water elements of these three cards tells you the story, even if you don't know what the cards mean, right? So we had this one. Her feet are mostly in the water, right? She's still drowning emotionally in all of this. All right, cool. Like we're on, we're on the waves, we're on the ocean. You're on some swords, but you're out of the water, but you're on some swords. And then finally, we have Nine of Cups. Like literally, you are standing on a bridge over the water. Like you've got this. And so why would we get a Nine of Cups? Like what is the manipulation? What is the cards trying to say? That she can trust herself. She can trust that this is the best possible thing that's probably ever going to happen to her, even though she can't see it now. And that she's going to come out of this feeling like a free bird, man. Free bird. And she's going to realize, why the heck was I messing with that abusive man? I'm free. I never have to deal with that again. And so sometimes this happy card is not because it's objectively better than the others, but that it's the tone and the volume of it is speaking to, she needs to hear how good it's going to be once she gets on the other side and how she's mastered this. So it's not just supporting, it's like empowering. No, we're not. Yeah, it could be Anna. Yeah, that he'll try to make amends. But with that death card there, I personally wouldn't read any cards after that to be about him. So for me, but in another formulation, I could see exactly why you're saying that. Like he's coming, with his whatevers. But I don't see that for this reading. It's more about her and her process and her level of consciousness. And sometimes we just need to know that we're going to be okay on the other side. And sometimes readings are like overblown positive because that person needs this huge positive message to get them through on the other side. So that's what I mean. It's not about necessarily, it's partially objective future, but there's also always that manipulation to it. And you always want to ask, what's the volume here? What's the tone of voice? And why is the tone the way it is? What is it really trying to get her or him or them to do, not do, realize? And when you look at the cards this way, you learn a lot about what that person isn't telling you about what's going on in their internal lives that tarot already knows. So it's a way for us to hack another layer of understanding of well, not only what the reading is saying, but why. So that is the rest of my, that's basically my TED Talk for today. You're welcome. Yeah, and this is me tying together, what's in this bad boy? Will you give me a reading? And if you enjoyed this workshop and you've not left me a review, could you please take a minute and go to Amazon and review this bad boy if you've read it? I know everyone gets tired of being asked to review everything. I know, but it is a big deal for us. It is like everything these days. So do me a solid and do that. And then also, if you go to my website, oops, let me just do it this way real fast. If you go to my website, you will, and let me show it. If you go to my website, jennamatlin.com, it will, I have a class. I tried to launch it before this and I ran out of time. But I'm going to be teaching Spectral Reader. It's four pre-recorded lessons and then 4 live classroom. It's your lab. You have 4 lessons and 4 labs to really work on how to become a good medium through the lens of being a tarot reader. Um, and how do we kind of join both of those talents or use one talent to transfer your skills into another? That will start in July, and that will be up in probably tomorrow or Saturday at the latest. And so keep checking. You can also get on my newsletter, and I send stuff like every 2 weeks about. And then I also have psychic gallery readings. I have one at the end of this month on a Friday. And I have another one at the end of June, which you can find once you hit the book a reading book like button on my website. And I think like even if you're like, well, I don't need a reading right now, but you're like a pro or you're interested, you should come just to see. Like I find it helpful watching how other people read. And I'll be like, oh my God, I never thought of the card that way. That's really cool. So often just watching that is so helpful, which we don't always get an opportunity to do, like with people, with real people getting real readings. And if you're interested in mediumship, definitely take a look at the course. I added mediumship to my tarot practice about 3 years ago. And so you don't see a lot of people doing that, going tarot and then adding mediumship. And you also don't see a lot of mediums adding tarot like proficiently. And I think that the siloing of these capacities is a detriment to all. And often I think tarot readers believe that maybe they're not mediums or that they can't be. But what if tarot is the medium? And the better you can interpret the tarot, the better you can become a medium through the tool of tarot, which I have a signature process I developed, just like my book, that's going to help get you there. Thank you so much. There's so many of you here. Like, oh, it makes my little heart sing because I love this stuff. And I just want to help people be better readers because it helps everyone. And I'm a nerd. Any final questions before I go? Thank you so much, Anna. I'm so glad. Keep coming back. I'm going to have a bunch of stuff through June to just promote the class I'm going to be teaching. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming up here soon. Thank you, Kathy. Oh my God, it's the top book of the decade. Wow. Thank you so much. I think the people who are ready for it will find it. It wasn't like the big, I'm going to win a Pulitzer or something. But it's based off of all the readings I've done and the unique vantage point of that. So thank you so much. That is just, you're going to make me cry. Please don't. But thank you. That's very kind. And thank you, Carrie. All right, guys, I am off. Thank you. Stay connected and we'll continue to play. Have a great rest of your, the rest of your week. And happy birthday to the Geminis out there. And take care of yourselves and one another. Bye, guys.